Hello, my name is Jada Parker, and I'm going to be presenting my midterm for my business class. And I'm going to try to be a lot faster. I didn't know that there was a 15 minutes limit, and it like cut me off in the middle of my presentation. So I'm going to try to kind of speed through this. The first topic that I decided to present on is to define the differences between leadership and management. And so I started with the definition of leadership. Leadership is the process of influencing others to understand and agree about what needs to be done and how to do it. And so, from this definition, I feel like it is very people based. It relies on maintaining a healthy relationship between the leader and the people that they are leading. And the textbook says that the influence and motivation from the leader are key factors in uh, maintaining good leadership. Management, on the other hand, is the process of dealing with or controlling things or people. And prior to taking this class, I actually thought that leadership and management was kind of like interchangeable. I thought that in order to be a good manager, you had to be a good leader, and vice versa. But with reading the textbook and doing a little bit more research, they made a really good point that you can be a manager and not even manage people. You could just be a manager of some type of project, or depending on what department you are, you might not even have any subordinates. So that right there was kind of like, hello, Jada, um, leadership and management are completely different. And so management, especially if you don't have many subordinates, they deal a lot more with projects, deadlines, and people if you do have subordinates. And so although it is important to have a healthy relationship between but with the manager and their subordinates, it's best to focus on more than just that relationship, like the projects and the deadlines. And it's always essential to keep the company's to keep the company in your best interest. So yeah, that's the difference between leadership and management. The second topic that I decided to research on was to discuss the participative leadership and empowerment. And I really like this leadership role. And I actually think that if and when I am a manager one day, I will use this leadership role. So, participative leadership and empowerment really deals with um, allowing collective input by subordinates to help come to a solution for a decision going on in a company, organization, whatever it is. And I really like this because I currently work in a company that does not do this at all, that often makes decisions that personally do affect us without consulting us. And it kind of makes us feel like we don't have a voice, that we don't have um, a say in anything that goes on. Um, and so that goes back to, it increases employee satisfaction because if we did have a say, if we were able to, give our opinion and our advice, it would make us feel better about going to work. It would make us feel a little bit more important and that we were valued at our job. Collective input also gives a broader and more in-depth perspective of a problem. So this happens all the time, even in class where I think that I know something, as for a project, and then I get in a group and we all collectively say our ideas, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even think about it that way, or the way that you said this was so much better, or it made me think about this, and it allows you to have a really in-depth perspective of what's going on. So inside a company, that's great. And empowerment leadership is kind of like the same as participative leadership, but in the sense that it basically gives more control to the subordinate, and while also making them responsible for their actions. So the best um, example that I can give of this, I used to work in retail, and the managers would often design the store when they had to increase sales and for a certain product. So if they wanted to use empowerment leadership, it would basically be like the manager letting me design the store instead of them designing the store. But if I did not increase the sales for that product, then that issue would fall on me rather than them. So it's like the subordinate taking on the responsibility. The third topic I decided to present on is to define the various forms of participative leadership. And so there are four forms, which is autocratic, consultation, joint decision, and delegation. And autocratic leadership is when that leader makes any and all decisions for the group or organization without any consultation from, their subordinates or anybody underneath them. And this leadership role just like instantly reminds me of the authoritarian, like government-esque vibes, like depicted here, Henry VIII or like Queen Elizabeth, where they don't have a democracy, they have an authoritarian government, so they make all the decisions. They don't ask for the opinions from the general public. The second form is consultation, and this is basically where leaders ask for the opinions of their subordinates, but they ultimately leave the final decision to them. They don't let their subordinates make the decision. And so the one example that I thought of instantly was like a principal. So like a principal can, ask the students what's going on, how to make the school better. They can ask the teachers what's going on and how to make the school better. But ultimately, it's up to them as to whether they want to listen to the students and the teachers and um, change any of the problems that arise, or if they want to keep it as it is. So yeah, I thought of a principal, but I'm sure there are plenty other examples that we could think of that use consultation leadership. The third form is joint decision making, and that involves the ideas and opinions and from the subordinates and the manager or the leader, and they come to a decision collectively. So the leader and their subordinates will, sit down and they will both ping pong their opinions, ideas about a certain project or issue that's going on, and they will come to a decision together. And I really like this participative leadership form a lot. I think that it shows that the manager values the opinions of their subordinates as well as the subordinates value the opinions of their managers, and it shows that they can collectively come together and decide on one thing. I think that's really important in a company. Oh, and the just to quickly explain the picture that I chose to do, it's basically like, a manager shaking the hands with their subordinate, signifying that they came to a solution together. The last participative leadership role is delegation, and this gives the subordinates complete control over a decision. It kind of like leaves the manager or the leaders out of it. Um, and this allows the subordinate to show the skills and the abilities that they have to their leader and to prove to their leader what they can do. And it also involves a complete shift of responsibilities from the leader. So it's like where a manager or leader would have all this workload and all these responsibilities, they are now giving to their subordinate to handle. So it's a major responsibility shift. And delegation should be used when the assignment can be done quicker or more efficiently when given to a subordinate or when given to somebody else. The last topic that I decided to present on that goes directly into delegation is to discuss the benefits and risk of delegation. So the benefits of delegation is that there is a sorry, there's a fair distribution of work amongst employees. So if a manager, has a lot of projects and they are able to distribute the workload evenly to their subordinates, then it makes the work field a lot more fair. Nobody has more work than the other. It also allows a manager to free up their time to dedicate more time to other important necessities, which relates to time management. So, like, I believe in the beginning of the semester, we talked a lot about time management and how managers can often have a really tough time managing their time. So by using delegation, They're able to free up their time by, if they have 20 things to do in a week, they can give 10 or 15 of those things to their subordinates, which will, free up their time and allow them to do other important necessities that they probably wouldn't have the time to do before. This also shows, um, this also allows the subordinates to show their skills and ability to their leader or to their manager, which increases employee satisfaction. So it's kind of a way for the subordinate to be like, oh, I'm going to show you what I can do. I'm going to put on my A game, to kind of impress their leader and show off their skills, which everybody, wants to do in a company. And it also builds a trusting relationship between the manager and the subordinate. Some risks of delegation, however, though, include um, that it widely depends on manager motivation. So it's kind of like the manager's job to not just give their subordinate all like tons of loads of work. It's kind of more of a, make them excited about the work that they're doing so that they will do it in an efficient way. Um, and another risk of delegation is the misuse of power from the manager. So, like I said, if a manager had 20 things to do in a week, they're able to delegate those assignments to clear up their schedule to do other things. But they can misuse this power and just delegate, all these work assignments to their subordinates and not really have anything to do. Just just clear up their work schedule and not dedicate that time to anything else. That's just kind of like an abuse of power. The textbook also notes the disloyalty towards the manager from the subordinate that delegation can have. So basically, putting a subordinate in charge of a project and giving them crucial information for the company kind of opens the door to them being able to know inside information and then use that as leverage for another company, for a competitor company. Um, that's basically what it is. And the last risk for delegation is the inability for subordinates to complete the task. So if the leader does not know the skills and the abilities of their subordinates, they run the risk of giving a project or an assignment to one of their subordinates that don't excel in that particular, assignment, or aren't really good at what they're being assigned. So with delegation, it's very important for that leader to know, okay, you know, Jada is good at this, and so and so is good at that. Like that way, it's easier to shuffle out what work you're going to give to what subordinate. Oh, and yeah, so that is the end of my presentation. I'm actually really excited because I finished in 13 minutes, and before I was probably going to go on for like 25. I kind of have that problem. Um, but yeah, since I have a little bit of time, I would just wanted to say that I think out of all of these participative forms, I definitely really like, what is it? I definitely really like the joint decision making. And I'm glad that so far I've learned the difference between what it means to be a leader and what it means to be a manager, and that they are not interchangeable. And yeah, I am really excited to see what the second half of this summer one semester holds. So thank you very much. Bye.